Good afternoon, everyone. What a crowd. I'm just humble of the fact of standing in front of so many women, so many nice-looking women, so many bright women. Fantastic. The more the merrier. Come and take a seat. I'm almost blushing here from the start to have you all listening to me. We will talk about Accenture Life Trends. My name is Ylva Wikström, and I work for Accenture and have been working for Accenture since '99, so I'm almost a dinosaur at our company, I would say. Even though I'm looking good still, yes. So how many of you have heard about Accenture Life Trends before? Yes, the raise of hands. A couple of persons, potentially some Accenture people. Some of you potentially have heard about the Fjord Trends. Then it's a hand up. Yes, that's usually. So during the last 15 years, we have done this report every year. And it's a report where we ask from the beginning it was all our creators, the designers around the world, to look out for trends in their country or in their market. That has also widened now to other professions than creators. And then we consolidate that and see what's going on in the different countries around the world to see what is the trends that we can see for the future. And it's consolidated in this report, and it comes every year after Christmas, usually. And I'm really excited to talk to you about this trends report this year, because this year is also quite good report in that fact that everyone can understand all the topics in it. And that is not all the case that has been in the past, because sometimes it has been a little bit of a blur what's included in them. But it's very tangible, I would say, and you will recognize a lot of things, and also due to the fact that it actually has impact on your lives, your families, your companies, the brands that you see, and so on. I will talk about 5 trends. I don't know if I will only stop at the trend number 1. Depends on how engaged you are, because I also would like to have this session as interactive as possible, because it will be extremely boring if you will just listen to me for 45 minutes. So it's also about what you see out there on your companies or in your homes or in your communities. Okay? So please help me with that. So what is the common trend for all of these 5 trends that I will present? It's all about control and power. And what we have seen the last year, in this report, we kind of describe life as seismic waves, meaning waves that go up and down during a period of history. And those has been quite calmly, nicely. Sometimes you see a spike here and there. But during the last couple of years, the waves has been dramatically higher and lower, as we've seen. And it has constantly came that way. And what we will see then that is in this kind of period of the instability, people, as we are, we like to take control. And that you will see in all of these different trends. And when we take control, we also adapt our lives. And by adapting our lives, we will change our behaviors. And that will have impact on brands, companies, communities, in general, the way that we act. And this is also apparent in the technology space, also how we use technology, what technologies we adapt, what we don't do, etc., but also how we interact with different brands. So what are the 5 trends this year? I will talk about these 5 trends. I will survive. It's a lot about this taking back control, the instability that we see around us. I'm a believer is actually a continuation of last year's trend about loyalty. As it was, I think all of us has experienced, and that is all about the workplace or getting back to the workplace, the offices. What is this trend there? And then we have probably what you all have heard in a lot of different rooms is what we call about how the development of AI is working. I will actually talk less about that in this set because it could be talked for hours, I would say. But let's just touch upon that. And the last trend that we have is what we call signed, sealed, delivered. And that's all about our data privacy and how we will be able to use technology to change how we work with sensitive data in the future. So, if we start with this, I will survive. It's back again to when we see instability and when we see things around us that is having a big effect on us, we'd like to adapt, and potentially we don't see that we will adapt in a huge way, but will we do something small to adapt? And these potentially have not, a big effect on your life, etc. But it will have, if everyone does the same thing, it will have a big effect on our community or on our society, and especially for companies and brands. And so from a company and brand perspective, they need to listen and see, okay, what's happening around us? How should they also change their service or how they interact with us as consumers or human beings or society in general? And therefore, they need to act in that. So what do we actually see? What's going on out there? During the last year, I think that every time we pick up a newspaper, we see all the headlines about Putin, it's Ukraine, it's energy crisis, but it's also about inflation, cost of living. It's also very diverse on where we're on the political agenda, but also about the weather conditions, the climate change that we see. And with this, people will feel anxiety, and they would like to, again, then take back the control of what does this mean for you. If you don't know how to pay your mortgage next month, you will act. If you see a lot of inequality that doesn't resonate with you, you will act. Some people will act on a big scale, some people will act on a small scale. But you will act, and that has a very big effect, I would say. So with this, there is a couple of things, the strategies that we have as a human people then. And we will talk about the 5 fours, is how we will respond to these different changes that we see around us. Some people will fight, and that is probably what you also see around the world. The typical example, I think that what we saw this morning with the song that we entered here, it's a typical example, what's happening in Iran. People take action because they don't see that they need to change something drastically. It doesn't need to be this big of a concept, but some people will do that. And I think that we will see a lot more of this also going around in the world. Some people will flight instead, and what does that mean? People will look for alternative option. And that also comes back to us in the tech, I would say. We will also look for different options online. Up until now, there has been big social media platforms. We will see a shift in this. The general social media platform will not be used as much. It would be more narrow. It would be more niched than we have seen before as well. But it's also about, if you don't know how to pay your mortgage, you probably will also, for example, then make a cancellation of your gym card. So we will most probably go into a period where we call the big cancellation period, that where people will start, canceling some of their services that they have used up until now due to the fact that they want to be in control. So that means that people and brands and companies will need to adapt. How can they be more adherent to what their customers want, and also secure that they have the services that they want? How are those companies relevant still? So those are typical things that we will see going forward. Also, the third option is that
you change to what you can control. It means potentially then again, for those that have the money, potentially they will actually move. They will move from the big cities to an option where it doesn't cost as much of living. There will also be shifts in regards to what they post on social media or what technologies that they are using. It's also about what they can control from how they influence other people. And some people, they will just freeze. If you go to China, you have something called Bailan, and that is more or less that people, especially in the younger generation, they don't really care about their lives anymore. They don't want to invest in education due to the fact that they don't see a point of doing that because they don't believe that things will be better. That's a huge change. And how should companies and brands interact with people that don't want to interact? So this is something that is really, really hard, I would say. But the companies and the brands need to change the way of doing things then. Brands, they need to understand when do they have permission to approach people. Especially if people don't want to have their attention. When are you interacting with them? When should you interact? When should you not interact? You don't want to have all of those push notifications to you. You would stop, saying, no, I don't subscribe. No, I don't subscribe. What does that mean? So they need to change and say, what are the valuable services for our customers and so on? How are they relevant for you? And that is a big, big change of power in the end. And it means also that the companies again and again need to change the way they are working with their brand, their services, but also in the way that they are using communities, especially in the social media and in the tech industry. So this first trend is all about how will people adapt during the coming years. And adapting in the coming years also will have that big impact. And with that big impact, new companies will come through. Some other brands will add a new revenue stream due to become that they are more relevant than others. That was the very first trend. Does anyone recognize this? Have you done any cancellation lately on your, I don't know what you subscribe to? Are you one of those that are like me, that I have started to look through my email chain and when you get all of these kind of PR mails that says, oh, we have this nice shirt for you, and I said, no, I don't want that email anymore. I will actually cancel that subscription. No, I can imagine that is quite a lot. So the big question is that, how will the companies be relevant for you in the future? And they need to figure that out in order to be the company that they want to be in the future as well. The second trend is I'm a believer. And this is really also about technology, I would say. So this is the next steps in loyalty. We have seen the kind of the loyalty machines where you have the big programs that you potentially you get some possibilities to buy something in advance, or you get access to certain information or things online earlier than others, etc. But it's still about then categorizing you as a people into certain groups, and they try also to be, personalized. That you get the name that says, "Hi, Ylva," and it's all the same again. What is the next steps in this, and this is also what happened, especially during the pandemic, is that what you saw during the pandemic, there was when people have more time also online, they tend to focus on what they think that really matters to them. What has become, interesting for you as a person. you can imagine, if you look at the statistics, you see certain niche groups. One of the biggest, growth in a niche group online was actually knitting during the pandemic. And it's a very specific hobby, I would say. I don't know how many of the knits in here, but a couple of people, did you start during the pandemic potentially as well? Oh, I don't know. But I mean, it's very specific. And the question is then, how will this also change the loyalty platform? Because there are a lot of things in the loyalty space that can be changed differently. And it's about then that there will be forming a new types of communities that is focusing on how we belong to each other. What is interesting for you as well as for me? Should we be a group? Probably. Or perhaps it's you and that person over there. You have the same interest. And therefore, you form a community. Think about before in marketing, there has been an idea of a product or a service. That product or a service, we decide, okay, we should sell this. Then it's developed. We probably do some user experience on top of that and think, okay, what do you want? What's your requirements from a customer perspective? Okay, and we put a price on that, and we do put a lot of money on marketing. But what's happening now then, think if you reverse this, instead of you and me as a group, we decided that we form a little bit of a community. We like to chat about knitting. Okay. But then there's a couple of more people that will chat about knitting. Yes. What do we want? What is the type of product that we want? So if we rather think that we community first, that we, 3, 4 people, we decide what the product or service that we want to create. And then we start gathering people into our community. Do you think this is fun as well? Should we center around this? And then we create the product. It's a very, very different thing compared to developing a product, marketing it, and launching it, and then you sell it, versus it's the people that actually will use the product, that have formed a community on what is important for them, and then decide what that product should have. It will be a huge difference. And what you see here from a technology perspective is that there's a couple of things that you see in this trend. It's like, first of all, that we have a lot more communities today that is niche space. You have the Reddit, the Discord, the Twitch, where you as a user can go in and you can search for your specific interest. But we also have what we call the token gating access. That means that there has been a soul of NFTs. NFTs is like a digital asset that you can buy with a cryptocurrency. And you decide that we as a people, we have bought something together, and then we form a community, and it's only accessible for us. One of the most interesting example of this is that there is a community that I actually invested partly in I think it's a Crawley Football Club, that is one of the ones that is in the UK league. And they have invested in that together in order to have influence on the football club. So on game day, they can have a vote for what type of food should be sold at games. Of course, you potentially become more loyal to that football club if you get to choose what is supposed to be in the food, or if there is can you as a group interview some of the players afterwards, because you are also kind of owning it and you are creating the content. You're actually voting for things together. But it's also about collectibles. Anyone know how much digital collective, for example, Nike did on digital sneakers last year? A guess. How much money did they make on selling digital sneakers? I mean, sneakers that does not exist in the physical world only. Guess how much money? Is it thousands? Any guess? Millions is very much correct. $150 million last year. That was only Nike sneakers. So you can imagine how much money it is in this business and how much people are willing to invest in this. But I mean, it doesn't need to be things that is in the gaming industry and so. It could be, you know, digital arts. Probably the hologram that you saw up on the big stage. Probably is the things that will be sold later on as well. So what is next then for the big companies? It is all about how do they interact to make with these communities and how can they then evolve and again be relevant for them. But it's also about how much should the companies and the brand involve their users in, you know, creating the products that they want to sell. How much of their power do they want to give to those communities in order to gain their loyalty? It's a lot of money in this, but it's also a balance. Do you only want, you know, the whole community to design the next couple of sneakers? I don't know. Or do you want to keep that in-house? So the bottom line, how much is belonging worth for you as a person, but also for all the companies that wants to have your loyalty? So that I think that's the second trend that we will see during the coming years, and it's already here, I would say. This is something I think we all will recognize. How many of you was last week 5 days at office? A hand up. Okay. How many was 4 days at office? Okay, a couple. 3? 2? How many was not at the office at all? Why are you not in office? You don't have one. That's also interesting. I think this is really, I mean, there's no answer to this. But it's clearly that when you look around and see what's happening in the world, I mean, every company have the same type of problem. Should we make a strict policy to get people into office? Should we have some hybrid thing? Or should we just the teams let decide what is good? And there's obviously different opinions about this. But I think it's like also what this trend is all about is about the intangible aspects of the office needs to be valued. And there's a couple of things in this that is extremely important and that we potentially don't think about. When during the pandemic, when you know we all wanted to keep up the business, still keep running, there was no time to design for the remote working setup. And so we didn't capture all of the aspects of that. And that means that we didn't think about, you know, how what we call the accidental culture, meeting at the coffee machine, but also about mentorship or how do we work with innovation when we are at home. And those are the things that is still equally important. And as leaders and those that decide upon policies for companies, etc., we still need to take a fresh, approach to this. It's not one fits all on this. But there is a couple of things that I think is interesting that we need to talk about. Obviously, community is one thing. How do we secure loyalty or band between our employees and ourselves in order to stay relevant? How would we act as a company to form our culture if we are always at home? But it's also about, I work at a company where we have a lot of young people. If you look at the knowledge development journey for a person, you see that when people get their first job, it's 70% of their time they learn on the job training, meaning that they do something actively on the job. About 10% is about their training or education that they get on the job. 20%, and this is where it becomes interesting, 20% is about following a role model. How do you follow a role model if you're sitting in front of a Teams screen? How do you follow somebody into a board meeting, seeing how they act, how they interact with people? It's hard. And our report actually shows that the people that started work between 2020 and 2022 are probably the people that will lose out on their development journey and will fall apart just due to the fact that a lot of the people stayed home or started a job because they don't keep up with all of the intangible aspects that the office actually gives us. I'm not here to say that, hey, let's go all back to office. I mean, everyone knows that it's really easy to put in, things in the washing machine or fixing dinner or picking up kids, or even if you don't have family, to do the things that you can do anyhow. Potentially you want to play tennis in the lunchtime. It gives you meaning. But the companies that you work for, they need to earn your commute. And the question is, how do you earn your commute? It's all about also changing the office experience. And it's not about getting free coffee or free lunches or muffins at 2 o'clock. It's about also how you work at office. How is your experience at office? I think that leadership, and this also reports that leadership in the future needs to have part of some type of event skills, if I would say for a lack of other words. Because we need to take care of that experience for our people. But again, also, back to getting a feeling of belonging. I don't know, is it any one of you that here in the room that have any good examples or good ideas of what you thought that your company did really, really good, that everyone else can copycat? Is it all bad examples? Do anyone have any? No? We are really lousy, aren't we? Did we do something good, Kajsa, at our office? What did we do? Yes, please.
I work as a consultant, and since everyone works in different places, so at my company we have something that is called Team B3, and it's like basically clubs according to your interest. Like we have B3 boat, so like those who like boats, they go there. Like we have B3 swimming, we have they used to have yoga, they have knitting clubs, they have like I know marathon, triathlon, and all those stuff. Like people go there.
Where do you work?
B3 Consulting.
B3 Consulting. So B3 Consulting have, at their work, they have different clubs. Did I say it? It was like the leadership was event managers. So they had yoga, there was a different thing. It's a really good example because I think that you need to be relevant, again, for your employees. I would actually assume also that part of the people that decided to set this up, they probably run a survey around the employees of that. What do you want at the office in order to, for us to trust or, to gain your trust and actually take that commute to us? Food is really good, is the thing. Yes. Yeah, we could always try to bribe people. That's how we do it. No, but I can say that at least it's also important, and the smaller thing is not about the food, but it's all about also letting people know when other people are in the office. And you can't underestimate that. So this is as part of the last kind of, the third trend then, I would say. I will just go through this here. Again, it's back to what has been the intangible of the office, meaning how we meet, how we talk to each other, the role modeling, the innovation things, those still need to be valued and have a hard currency compared to your gym card or your salary or your other types of benefits. And so this is, and there's no really answer, what is the perfect match. And I also think that each company is not one answer, because I think it needs to be tailored for a lot of people. It is not one size fits all on this, because some people are a mother, and other people are single, it's very, very different. And I think that we need to cater for that as well. But I think what is also important, as it says in this report, is that you need to have a strategy and put it on paper and stick with it. If you're a large company, it's equally important also to be okay and say that perhaps our policy or our way of how we have decided we want to work doesn't fit everyone. And you need to let people go. And that's, I understand, it's a hard message. But you also need to believe in your strategy as a company. Okay, creativity. I will, again, this was what I said that I will not dwell so much about, also due to the fact that this is not directly my area of expertise, but this is all about AI and how that, AI have put the creativity in the ways of everyone here. I don't know how many of you feel that you did an A scoring in high school for your Swedish language, or in, I don't know how you say build in English now, but the arts performance. I was not an art A student. I was not an A student in Swedish nor in English. But with chatbot GPT, I will be. So, no. The thing is here is about that what will happen both with those professions, but also how do we distinguish good from great? All of the pictures in these presentations has been made with Midjourney. Midjourney is like the pictures version of chatbot GPT for language, if you didn't know in that sense. So what's going on? It's all about language, images, but also sound and music. You heard the example of the DJ upstairs. Also video content. And I would say that if I could speak about specific AI technology here today, if I would have the same conversation in 2 weeks' time, it would be different companies that I would talk about. It's at that speed, and it's here now. And I think it was a really, really good example that was brought up on the main stage this morning, that now it's not about, OpenAI has been here for a while. The generative AI has been here for a while. So it's nothing new, but what is new is with the chatbot GPT, it became known to everyone. You don't need to be a techie in order to understand how it works. And that will have, it's the similar effect as, when Minecraft launched the beta version. It was not that it was a great gaming, but it was the spread that so many other people wanted to contribute to it that became the widespread. And it's similar with AI. There is a lot of discussion on specifically OpenAI and chatbot GPT. I understand that, and I'm not going to take that up so much here then, because there is a lot of things about, everything from regulations, the copywriting, but also you have to understand that it's a different to say also what is it that are the good things about this and what is the potential negative things about this. And when it goes in such a speedy way, how will we be able to cope with those potential negative effects? Because we will be designing for that now. I also think that we should not be afraid of this. It's like, I was wondering what they were thinking, back in the days when the first camera arrived. Would they say that the Rembrandts and the Picasso was not relevant anymore? Probably. They could say, no, photographs will take over the world and we will only have art photographs, you know. I think it's similar here, but this is just a different scale on how fast it goes. And again, we just need to adapt and see and pay attention to what is good versus what is great. Why should we pay for, you know, a great creative artist or a designer compared to have a novice designer with a type of AI moderator? We need to design for it. And we will see a lot about this trend going forward as well. The last trend is what we call signed, sealed, delivered. This is not, I would say, has not been so much debated in Europe, but it's a huge debate in the US. I think we all know that, you know, data privacy has been on the topic for a very long time. We have the European legislation that went, you know, also said, and that's why people taking away a lot of, you know, the delivery centers out in India, going back to Europe, due to the GDPR rules, etc., and so on. So this last trend is about digital wallets. If you take, you probably had your coat with you here this morning. When you went in to take that coat into the wardrobe, you got that little sticker. I probably have mine here in the back. That is a similar thing as a digital wallet. Think that the ticket that you got has all the information about you. And I am not talking about only, you know, your payment, you know, attributes, but actually your favorites, what you like, your demographic, whatever. And you decide who you give that ticket to online. And this is also driven by the fact that Google this year, they will now say that they will not sell any first-party data anymore. That means that the marketeers out there, they will not be able to use those cookies, and they will need to find other ways, you know, to get that hand on that data in order to, you know, push their marketing towards you. I think it was last year, was like 70% of the marketeers said that they need to triple their marketing budget in order to, you know, to keep the same type of marketing as they have today if Google then, you know, takes away the cookies. So I think this with the digital wallet, and this is a Web3 technology, it's already exists, it's out there, but there is some discussion about, you know, how will this be used and why it's not adopted yet is due both from, you know, how can we from a consumer perspective see that we are willing to invest in this, understand what it is, but also have the barrier of saying that, okay, I want to have this, you know, personalized information, etc., and so on, but also for the companies to adopt it and to have a similar way of working with you to say, okay, I would like to have your digital wallet, and that's so. We will see this come, but this is the trend in the report that it has, we don't know, is it going to be adopted by 5 years or 10 years? But it will come. So from the company perspective, it's really, you need to start planning it now. That was the last trend. I will not go through so much on this. I just want to say that the conclusion of all these trends, again then, is again back to control versus power. All of the trends has tech elements in it. Are you want to take back your control? Most probably yes in most of those cases. When you do so, you will change your behavior. And by changing that behavior, what does that mean for the brands that you will interact with or the companies that you interact with? And that is the big shift that we will see going forward as well. That was what I wanted to talk to you about today. Thank you. Any questions? crystal clear. We know what the future is. If not, then I will wish you a nice afternoon and have another cup of coffee there out there. Okay? Thank you.